Hello and welcome to Portsmouth This Week for Friday, November the 18th. Today our guest is State Representative and Majority Whip Jay Edwards from District 70, which is Tiverton and Portsmouth. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you.
Okay, good to be here. The general elections have just concluded. We've got a lot of activities going on at the national level. The state level here, we've had some changes, but not a whole lot of changes in the legislature. What we'd like to do would be to today, if we can, just kind of discuss what we can expect here, what we can generally expect for legislative agendas for the coming year. Mm-hmm. And I think you're in a kind of a unique position there to help us with that. With that, let's get started. Okay. Rhode Island voters approved all 7 of the statewide referendums this year. 2 of them covered events. One of them, of course, was the Ethics Commission. The other one, the most important one, I think, for you particularly, was the casino agreement. The others were primarily funding referendums, veterans' home, higher education, port infrastructure, both in Providence and at Quonset, green energy, and affordable housing. I'd like to hear from you a little bit about what these mean, because they affect, or how they might affect us here on the East Bay.
Well, I think the one that's going to have the greatest impact on the East Bay would be the Tiverton Casino. Right now, Newport Grand is generating approximately $27 million for the state. The Tiverton Casino, Tiverton Twin Rivers, is expected to generate in excess of $50 million for the state, plus another $4 million locally for the town of Tiverton. Wow. So in our area, I think that'll be the greatest impact. The Ethics Commission was really well needed, was something that the General Assembly put through. I was very happy to have voted for that and have been one of the people who supported it.
Yes, it got about 80% of all the votes.
As it should have. Yeah, right. You know, all of us should be under the same rules. Right. The Veterans Home in Bristol will have some good local impact. And actually what that will do is there'll be more money coming back to the state, about approximately $12 million in the refinancing deal we have with the federal government.
So the kind of a matching or...
Yes, so the state will actually make out a little bit, and we'll have a really nice place for our veterans to retire to, which is absolutely necessary. And the last one that'll probably have some impact locally will be the housing, because it'll be generating new construction jobs, and construction jobs are really sorely needed in this state, and they are a large contributor to our income tax and local economies. Construction workers tend to spend most of their money within like a 25-mile radius of their home, so that's good for all of our local economies.
Well, it'll be good. I think I wanted to ask you about one of the referendums. I think it's question number 6 was about approving $35 million for parks, recreation, bike path, and other environmental projects. One of the line items that I've happened to pull off is this $5 million will finance matching grants to communities for recreation projects. So, and I guess what I'm thinking about is who administers that? How does that get?
A lot of times it's split up between the Rhode Island DOT and Rhode Island DEM.
Okay.
In fact, in Tiverton, we just got a fairly substantial grant for the work just next to our stone bridge abutment, and it was a grant through Rhode Island DEM to help us renovate, get rid of the gas stations there, put a gazebo in, and do some renovations to the beach itself. Those are the kind of projects that will be generated out of that fund.
Yeah. And that I had a topic I want to talk about a little bit later on under RIDOT, but you mentioned it here a little bit. On our side of the bridge, of course, we have the same kind of a remaining bridge abutment, and we also have a small beach there. And I think last year or year before last, Council Member 70 had brought up an item to address whether or not the town should pursue building or converting that into more of a beach there and approaching the state of Rhode Island to do that. So this is the kind of funding that could be applied to that?
Yes, and I would suggest that the Portsmouth Town Council get a hold of the Tiverton Town Council, because they put together an ad hoc committee made up of members of the council, members of the Recreation Committee, and they spent several years. They involved all the members of the delegation. We were all very active in helping them get this money forward. and also to getting the improvements done for our Stone Bridge abutment, which if anything happened to that abutment, like we have a storm surge and wipes it out, we'd lose pretty much most of the Tiverton Basin.
Yeah. Well, and I think that obviously, again, it's almost like a ditto that could happen, and the same kind of impact could be, because we've got a bit of a marina right to the north of our side of that also there.
There are 5 marinas in that area, all in my district, and I'm very, very cautious about how they're protected.
Well, I'm glad you're looking out for it. And certainly, hopefully with the new town council is coming on board, hopefully that we'll be able to revisit what we can do for that area there, you know?
Hopefully.
We'll make it a point of that, yeah. And another topic, across the state line, our friends in Massachusetts approved recreational use of marijuana, which who knows what that will mean in the future for us, but which brings to mind some areas for discussion. One of them is longer term, what's the likelihood that may be done here in Rhode Island, and what it might mean for that. And on the other side of it is having recreational marijuana so readily available across the state line is obviously going to have an appeal and an impact on use here in the state of Rhode Island. The state of Rhode Island presently provides a kind of a funnel for directing federal funds to the towns for drug education, substance abuse, education, and other things. What on the 2 areas, what are the states, or what do you think the state's plans are going to be to one, consider future use of marijuana recreationally, and 2, probably more importantly, help the communities make sure that having this available so readily is well contained?
Well, putting the moral issues aside and looking at it strictly from a financial aspect, I think the state of Rhode Island will follow suit fairly shortly. The Speaker's already made his intentions clear to look at it very heavily, as has the governor. Last January, as I said earlier, I went out and spent some time in Colorado. Right. They run their program through the Department of Revenue, and I had some very good, candid conversations with the head of their Department of Revenue about how they set it up. There's quite an amount of infrastructure that needs to be set up before the first store actually opens. And I think if we're going to be successful with a program in Rhode Island, we need to follow the same kind of format that Colorado did. Maybe vary it differently, you know, how it will work in Rhode Island, but they set it up well ahead of time. And I don't think what people in Rhode Island don't really understand is there's a significant amount of money that has to be set up and spent before anything can really happen.
A sunk cost, so to speak.
There is. And before you make $1, you'll be laying out a significant amount of money just to set the infrastructure up.
Right. And I guess several other, this is, Massachusetts is what, now one of 6 states where I think...
yeah, 6 or 7, yes.
It's
Massachusetts, Maine, and a couple other ones out west.
And so a lot of the startup, if or when, I suppose, if it's probably not quite inevitable, but when that happens here, we've got a lot of the original startup issues have been well identified, so hopefully the state will plan well for that.
And there's been enough states out west that have already done this. I mean, Oregon set up their own program. They classify it as a crop, and they failed miserably. They have marijuana growing willy-nilly everywhere. Colorado has it very well controlled. Everything is inside. They follow the plants from the moment they take them off the mother plant right through to the time where they're actually sold. They have these radio tags, and they can identify, you know, where these plants are at any given moment. So they've got a pretty good program set up out there that I think, you know, we as a smaller state with a much larger neighbor who is going to incorporate this, I think we need to look more towards the states that have already done it and see if we can follow suit.
I think it'll take a long time to make sure we kind of separated all the fact from the fiction, you know.
And there's a lot of fiction.
Yeah. Well, we were, my wife and I were in Colorado in October, and we made a point of asking some of our friends, folks that live in suburban Denver and folks that live in other parts of the state, about, you know, what, if any, kind of direct impact has legalizing marijuana had on them in the last 2 years. And the general answer is none at all. I mean, you know, it isn't like there's any rampant use around erratic
Yeah.
behavior, local grocery stores pushing things that they want, So I think it's like a lot of other things, it will roll itself out, and we've legalized other substances. We've got a, we kind of know what to expect with that,
And we need to look at the other positive aspects of marijuana growth, like hemp.
All right.
I mean, hemp is a real product. It's a cash product that we could, grow here, and bring our hemp industry back, and not be buying it all from overseas.
Are you saying the state of Rhode Island is going to provide an economic development incentive to increase?
No, but we as a state need to look at it realistically.
No, I don't mean to make light of it, but you're right. There are economic opportunities. But on the other side, there's also some obligations, I think, to make sure we protect our citizens, and we do what we can to either educate people about the proper use, or for those folks that are having problems, to help them deal with their problems. So what might the state do, or what might the state's approach be to either increasing support for some of the community plans, or helping out in that way?
I imagine, like Colorado and a few of the other states, that the state of Rhode Island will set aside a certain sum of the income towards drug prevention and helping people who have drug issues, and that needs to be addressed. Rhode Island right now, with the opiate issue, I think we have the 7th or 8th highest per capita death rate in the country from opiates, and it's a huge scourge on our state. So I mean, this is just one of the issues we need to address before we really bring in a whole nother product.
Well, maybe we could expand a little bit on that here. I mean, just generally speaking, what is a legislature's role, do you think, in funding and developing and supporting all of these programs to help address the issues you just brought up?
Well, the governor proposes a budget every year, and then at the House, we are the preeminent chamber that deals with the budget. We take it, and when we have governors that we don't think have the same thought process we do, we grossly overhaul their budget. And we have governors we work with very closely. We tweak it. I think we've had a good relationship with our current governor, and I think we have been tweaking it, and we've been working very closely with her. But she also hasn't proposed anything outlandish. Like one of our governors before I have a bill that I intend to introduce this year regarding the sales tax. They took the guts of my bill, and rather than reducing it to 3%, they were going to reduce it to 6.5%, and it was just not what should have been.
Yeah.
But she has a much more long-term view, I think, and she's worked well with the legislature thus far.
And kind of based on your earlier comments, maybe there's some kind of anticipation of what future legislation might bring in this direction. So the wheels are already kind of turning to anticipate some of this.
Yes.
As far as that goes, yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and I think a little roadie, huh?
Well, we're the state that has a lot going for it. We're a beautiful place to live, and there's a lot happening in Rhode Island.
Yeah. It is. It's may bring a new meaning to the term about visiting little Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we can get our tourism slogan down.
How's that coming, by the way? And that's a little segue into RIDOT here and to people visiting our state. Are there new programs going to come out?
Well, Representative Lauren Carson from Newport has been really at the forefront of that. But I've been watching the issues with her committee. She's been going in and checking on how the tourism has been working. I think we need to take just a pretty simple, straightforward approach. Basically, here we are, we're Rhode Island, and here's what we have to offer, as opposed to these cooler and warmer we have to think about for a long time.
Yeah. It doesn't. When you have to think that much, it really hurts.
Yeah, and I'm, the ultimate Rhode Islander, as are many people, and when I can't figure it out right away.
Well, it grows on you, right? I mean, think about it, right?
It grew on us.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about our infrastructure, and particularly in Rhode Island, that kind of results primarily in highways and roads. On RIDOT has been in the news a lot, and I know that's not a direct responsibility of yours, but you guys provide a lot of funding for that. And We've recently seen the launch of this Roadworks RI program, and in fact, seems to be a growing number of signs along the road to say, what's coming in the future. One of them is right here, just as you approach the Seconic River Bridge. So, along the line of projects, a near and dear question we have is, what about the deconstruction of the Seconic River Bridge? What can you share with us? Is that still on?
It's still on, and I spoke to my contact at RIDOT this morning, and they assured me that it's still going to bid this coming December, and then it will be put out. The construction will start in spring of 2017, and what they're going to do is they still have some problems with the EPA.
Yep.
So what they're going to do is they're going to take down the metal superstructure first, while they're working out the issues.
So
with
the piers would still be there?
The concrete piers will still remain until they can get the issues cleared up with the EPA. But the ugly,
the visible part.
The visible part, the real eyesore, that's like the gateway to Newport, will be demolished and gone.
Well, just thinking maybe we could take some of the casino funds to speed that up, right?
I think, as goes with the casino funds, those are the kind of funds that, I know you wanted to talk about the car tax later on, but
well, sure.
Those are the kinds of issues that we could, when we get more money, like with the casino funds, or actually right now our revenues are running about $45 million to the good.
Good, right, I read that.
And I know the Speaker has talked about eliminating the car tax. It's about a $200 million problem overall.
The car tax?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a lot of money. And he's looked at it to have it as a 5-year phase-in. So we're not going to just magically find $200 million in our budget somewhere, because that's not possible. But we could find 40, 50, some odd million dollars and attack a portion of it this year and then just continue to pick at it over the course of the years. But people will have to understand that in order to do that, there are other areas in the budget that will have to be reduced.
Right.
So we're going to have to take from one and move it to another section.
The priorities have to be changed a little bit, maybe, in terms of...
Exactly. And the people have spoken very clearly on this. No one likes the car tax. I don't like the car tax. My wife hates the car tax. Everyone I know hates the car tax.
Well, I do want to talk a little bit further about that. It wasn't quite clear to me how that might work based on what I read in the article.
What he wants to do is basically we're going to give the money to the cities and towns, so they won't need the income from their constituents.
So what would happen then is that then the town has to decide whether to pass on a mill rate reduction potentially, or repurpose that savings for other things in the community.
Well, if the town gets it as a relief from the car tax, they would have to use it as relief from the car tax.
And so then that would mean that the car tax would be decreased for the individual.
Yes.
So when we pay our annual taxes, we see it in terms of...
You'd see a decrease in your car tax. Okay. Not all of it.
Over 5 years.
It would be over 5 years.
Yeah. So if you're paying $200, you might see $40 a year.
Yeah, you might see $30 one year, you might see $50 another year. I'm sure there's going to be some up and down with it because, like I said, we're going to have to go into the budget and find areas that we can cut without cutting services to those who most need it. But we're going to have to find areas that we can cut, and it's going to be, there will be some people affected by that. Yeah. It's never easy when we cut the budget, but the people, like I said before, the people have spoken very clearly on this issue, and they want the car tax removed.
Yeah. And of course, you're right. And not only can you adjust the amount of monies by changing priorities, you can also increase the amount of money potentially if we have additional economic growth.
Exactly.
So that's another...
If the Trump administration comes through with the $1 trillion they're talking about for infrastructure, we might get more money from the federal government for our infrastructure program, which would offset funds to be used for things like the car tax. More money for schools. I know you talked about how Portsmouth is penalized for...
well, I think originally it was like a $2 million budget cut for the school departments when they recomputed the formula, and it was like over 10 years. So every year we've been losing about $200,000.
The town wasn't penalized. What they did is we reset the way the funding formula was configured, and we went by the number of students you have, as opposed to this subjective pie-in-the-sky version of the funding formula for the schools from before. And honestly, I voted on one or two of those budgets, and I have no idea how the money was figured. But right now, if you have 10 students in town X and you have 11 students in town Y and 15 in another, the money is apportioned by the students.
Right. I misspoke.
Yeah, but a lot of people say
the net result was that we
lost
losing
money.
roughly $200,000 a year that the school board's got to go find somewhere else or make decisions on what to cut.
Both Tiverton and Portsmouth.
Right. Same thing.
They lost out on that. But I think with an increase in our casino revenues, if, like I said, if we can apportion some of the money, if we get a windfall from the federal government for our infrastructure work, we can move some of those monies to things like education. And we did that this year. We increased our funding to the cities and towns for education.
Well, and again, back to the economic development, if Trump's efforts and coincident with our own statewide efforts to improve economic development or to provide additional economic development incentives here bear fruit, then we'll have more revenue to start with.
And it's kind of a snowball effect with the infrastructure work. We put more people back to work. The people who go back to work pay income taxes. They spend money in the state. They buy things. They buy new homes. There's a lot of money that's generated from that revenue. So once you start spending money on infrastructure, it's this huge snowball, and it actually helps the state overall. As when we had the Depression, one of the first things Roosevelt did was start spending money on infrastructure to put people back to work.
Well, hopefully that will be what happens here. And speaking of spending money on infrastructure, one of the other questions I had regarding this Roadworks RI program, well, a couple. One of them was there's been this great concern that the truck toll mechanism, once it's implemented, will be challenged and could be found to be inappropriate, and then they might have to change the way we fund our this whole new project. Is that?
I really don't think so. I mean, the federal government has already reviewed our program. They've determined that the tolling is appropriate. And of course, the trucking industry, of course, they're going to challenge it. They're going to take the state to court. I don't think they're going to be successful. But we have a legal system in this country that allows for them to do what they have to do. And if they were going to tax, the construction industry, I'm sure all the contractors I work with, we would all be out there screaming bloody murder and saying the same thing. I don't think the truckers are wrong in trying to, because it is going to be a direct tax on them. But we need to recoup the funds for the damage their vehicles have caused to the state. And you'll notice that they put a big effort out this last election. Not one incumbent lost who voted for the tolls. In fact, there were two, one in the House and one in the Senate, who voted against the tolls, and they both lost their seats.
Wow. Well, politics is a wonderful thing.
Oh yeah. Well, no, it's the word and what the people want.
Right.
It's the people have the final say. That's why we have elections. Everyone says you're going to do X and Y. The people always have the final say, which is great.
They've recently spoken relatively loudly, so now we'll see what results.
Yes.
So these funds that are will be supported from truck tolls. Is there any chance that any of that infrastructure repair money will end up over here on our side of the state? Like
yes.
24 coming onto Aquidneck Island, and or as you come down Aquidneck Island to travel to Newport, East Main and West Main both are desperately in need of things. And the state had, last year I think they changed their long-range planning from 5 years, I think it was, to 10 years, right?
Yes.
And in that, the roundabout that was proposed at East Main and Turnpike near Clements, of course, that got pushed out for several years. And some other changes they were talking about over on West Main Road. Do you think that, is it Alvidi, is that our new?
Director Alvidi, yes.
Director Alvidi, the head of DOT. Do you think in their reviews or overviews with the legislature, do they talk at all about, or can you share anything about what you might know about what plans there are for Quinnipiac Island or for Newport County?
Well, I work very closely with DOT. I have 5 major issues with them that I am constantly on the phone with either the director or his deputy director or some of his subordinates, even the engineers. One is obviously the Secundit River Bridge demolition,
Right.
which we spoke about. The other one is the Stone Bridge abutment, which is a major
Right.
issue. I've actually gone to our federal delegation on that. And then also we've had the roundabout in Tiverton and the East Main Road project
Right.
in Portsmouth. So I've been working very closely with them on those projects, trying to move them forward.
So, maybe.
I think the East Main Road project will start this next year.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, that's from Park Avenue
Right.
moving north.
Right, right. And
Actually south,
that
moving
instance
south.
of the realignment of Park Avenue at East Main and some other things they're
Yes.
proposing, yeah. And those are those recovering a date that had slipped out, or are those things that were already planned?
They were planned, they were just moving the dates out a little bit, trying to move some of the projects up that are a little more critical in the state.
Okay. Well, let's see. Economic development. We talked a little bit about Trump's plans for the nation, and maybe there'll be a little trickle down here for Portsmouth, but Quinnipiac Island, East Bay, Tiverton, other than whatever economic impact we get from the casino relocating up here, generally speaking, from a legislature's perspective, what are or what might be in the works for any kind of economic stimulus here, like we've got an enterprise zone,
Which we fought very hard for.
yeah, and are there any things being considered that would expand that or make it even more attractive?
Well, we've continued, as on the House side, we've continued to look at things like the corporate rate. We have now the lowest corporate rate in all of New England. We're looking at continually reducing and eventually eliminating our general corporate tax. It was $500, now it's $450. And along with the governor, we continue to bring businesses from other states into Rhode Island. I work in construction outside of this, and we brought a company into Westerly from Connecticut. We did the work for them.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know that there's a lot of other things that we could be talking about here, but
We could spend an hour or more.
yeah, easily that. And certainly we'd like to invite you to come back another time, and perhaps we've got some new representatives here for Portsmouth. Maybe we can get them to come on board with you.
That'd be good. It'd
And,
be really good to enjoy that.
Be interesting. I mean, they'll be the freshmen this year, and maybe they'll contribute a little bit, or you can help them in their contributions. So thank you for coming on board. We look forward to having you back again. And thank you for joining us here on Portsmouth This Week, and we'll see you next time.